Good morning and welcome to the snowy original Loretta Brown Show. Crisp, clean. Yeah, that's right.
So, darn that Punxsutawney Phil, the little old groundhog, was correct for currently our area.
Currently for our area.
Although it's never too late. It snows tardy for the party because we didn't really have much of a winter here.
No, we didn't.
So now it's finally arrived.
I know.
And we're almost into March.
I know. Somebody was posting the other day, it's like, 26 days till spring or something like that. You know,
I like this.
This
is
too.
perfect for me.
I do
but
too. Yeah.
Some people are kind of tired
But
of
be
it.
careful out there driving around, a little bit slippery.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how we are here. We love the snow, but lots of us don't know how to drive it.
Well, we tend to drive like there isn't any.
Yeah.
When there is. So let's just all slow down.
Let's just slow down.
Breathe.
Look at the beautiful road ahead.
Right. But
right.
focused.
But focus.
At the same time.
Focus.
Okay.
Hey, you know, that's interesting you say that because I always kind of pay attention to messages that kind of come to me from the world around me.
Mm-hmm.
And my message this morning apparently is focus because I saw it on the back of 3 cars, like a bumper sticker, like
Really?
focus, focus. And I thought, I guess maybe I should focus.
There's a legitimate sign there.
There is. I will ponder and the meaning of focus this morning. So I hope you're all getting up and you're moving around and ready to have a wonderful show. I have a wonderful guest today. I'm going to do a little bit of check-in astrologically, and then we'll bring him on. And by the way, welcome to the original Loretta Brown Show, radio to open the heart, heal the soul, and yawn, awaken the consciousness. I just throw those in just because Benny smiles and he's so cute when he smiles. So anyway, we do always have wonderful things coming up at Reiki Oasis. I'm the owner of Reiki Oasis, located right here in the greater Seattle area for the last 23 years. Unbelievable. We love it. So many wonderful things, good workshops, and this Saturday is Temple of the Divine Feminine. It is a workshop for women only, and we actually do temple work with the women. If you don't know what that is, send me a little email at info@ReikiOasis.com. You can sign up at the scheduler, schedule.ReikiOasis.com. I have not thanked my amazing webmaster for a few shows. Thank you, Indigo Hawk. I always feel like it should have like a theme song right there because, you know, technology is not my forte. And for those people that do it, I'm always grateful and amazed at your ability. So has it been a hard week for all of you? It has, actually. It's been a lot of stuff going on this week and things that have really touched our hearts and got us a little bit riled up. And for me personally and interactively with friends and family and clients, it's been a little bit challenging. There's an energy right now that is helping us move through our pain and suffering. So the energy this week will help us figure out how to transcend the pain and suffering and help us find inspiration, tremendous compassion, and altruism as we move forward into something better. So this week, we had 2 planets moving into Pisces and joining Venus in Pisces. The Sun and Mercury moved into Pisces at the beginning of the week, and this is a part of a growing Piscean energy, which is about compassion, communion, forgiveness, grief, wanting meaning and purpose, and has to do with understanding our interconnection with everyone and everything. It's an awareness of what each other is really feeling to include ourselves. So Venus meets Neptune in the sky this week, and Venus is the goddess of love. And meeting Neptune in the sky has to do with a universal love. And don't we need that right now? It's an extraordinary act of compassion, an act that transcends our pain and helps us find meaning and wisdom where maybe it looks like there isn't a lot of it. So this energy has to do with being plugged into Source, plugged into your idea of God, and going deep, deep, deep into the heart of things, because Pisces is deep. Mercury, newly positioned in Pisces, will be speaking in harmony with Saturn, that planet that is in Capricorn right now, We will find ways to ground the energy that we are finding in our hearts and in our spirits. Venus meeting Neptune has to do with escaping into love. So many of us out there may be feeling very swept away or swept up in the moment or wanting to be swept away by love. And we will be interacting with others in a more open way. And you've already been noticing that not only around yourself, but probably in the news. If you're open to meeting someone new, this energy will help you believe in miracles of love. And that can be romantic, but it can be all the different ways that love can find us. If you are in an established bond, this is very much about soul energy and feeling that much closer to the one you've been with. This energy can be a little heavy, so sometimes we just need to believe, you know what, my listeners, things will be okay. And you can hope for a brighter, better future. We are learning to transcend whatever we are feeling this week. And there's a sense now of taking what we feel about each other and turning it into practical steps forward. At the same time, real beauty will find us this week, and beauty that is lit up by spiritual understanding of how all of us are connected by heart. My message always to everyone, and I want to thank Nadia Shaw for the astrology report today. And I've been working a lot with my clients lately about being in the heart and what is the difference between coming from the heart, leading from the heart, as opposed to leading from the head, and how very deeply we need to get into that today. I can't think of a better way to introduce my guest, my guest today is Dean Sluyter, and he's author of Fearless. This is his newest book, Fearless, Living Beyond Fear, Anxiety, Anger, and Addiction. And for those of you on the little cam, I'm showing you the cover of the book. And remember, you can be watching me live on 11:50 a.m. YouTube, right? That's right. Benny's putting his thumb like you got that right, Loretta.
Yes, because I was shutting the door. I want to make sure
right. That's right.
Undivided attention.
That's right. Now, Dean has taught natural methods of meditation and awakening throughout the U.S. and beyond since 1970. From colleges and yoga studios to corporate offices and maximum security prisons. I love that. His best-selling books include Natural Meditation, winner of the Nautilus Award for Best Book on Body, Mind, and Spirit Practices. He has appeared frequently in national media, including the New York Times, National Public Radio, Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie, and the Oprah Magazine. And now he is on, yay, the original Loretta Brown Show. I'm so glad to have you on the show, Dean. Welcome.
Yay! Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I love that. Yay! Yay! That's
Yay.
right.
That's a good mantra.
It is. It's
Yeah.
very, very good. I wanted to make a little announcement to the listening audience. I have posted the number for the radio station, and Dean is open to taking calls today. And so as you listen, if you have a question, remember that when you're feeling that prompting from your heart and from inside you, that your question is probably not going to help to only you, but help other people too. So the number at the radio station is 425-373-5527 or 1-888-298-5569. And I love your book, Fearless. Fearless is what I like.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Two words.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, first of all, thank you for pronouncing my name right, because I know it's one of these wacky Dutch names, Sluyter. You'd never guess that it has a U in it. People have trouble with that. So you pronounce that right. But I want to point out that the title of the book, as you say, it's not fearless, it's fearless.
Got it.
And you do see a lot about fearlessness these days, and that would be lovely. I haven't met anyone who's really fearless, including the Dalai Lama. I talk a little bit about the book. I was at the Dalai Lama's, I think it was his 80th birthday bash, just, me and the Lama and about 10,000 friends in a stadium. And
me and my Lama, yeah.
Yes. And And it came up that he talked about how he's afraid of worms. And but what was great was that he just found it hilarious, so that as you become more awakened, and I think we can assume he's a pretty awakened soul, there still may be some fear there. There still may be some anger there. We're still human beings. Even enlightened human beings are human beings. But those things become less overwhelming. They become less of a problem. They become less overbearing. So they're not taking up all the space of our awareness. We've got space around it to just laugh and look at it and say, hey, look at that.
I think your book is so timely because obviously if we just look in the world around us, there are a lot of things that are activating our fear. And,
right.
And of course that brings up trust issues and, false news issues and
right.
Yeah. So your book title, Fear Less, Living Beyond Fear, Anxiety, Anger, and Addiction. Now, I find it interesting that you've gotten that title. You've got fear, anxiety, anger, and addiction.
Mm-hmm.
Are those all coming from the same place within us? And
yes, they are.
Okay.
Yes, they are. And those seem to be the four things that are kind of in the drinking water these days.
Mm-hmm.
As you say, so much fear going around. The very places that we used to look to as places of security. Like, kid gets up in the morning, mom packs his lunchbox, and he goes off to school. And now we've got, kids afraid to go to school, worrying about whether they're going to get shot.
Mm-hmm.
Now, clearly, it's not time to bury your head in the sand. It doesn't mean, okay, we're all going to close our eyes and meditate and ignore our duties of citizenship. I'm politically active. I have my particular political views. I donate to certain candidates and march for certain causes. But also, I see people who allow themselves to get overwhelmed by the news. My parents were very political, and I can remember them swearing at Richard Nixon on the TV. And I used to wonder, do they know that Nixon can't hear them through the screen?
Everyone heard what he did, though.
You're right.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So I actually have a chapter in the book titled "Would It Help?" And that's a reference to, if you've seen the film Bridge of Spies. It's based on a true story about Rudolf Abel, the Soviet spy who was captured in New York at the height of the Cold War, and he's put on trial for espionage, and fortunately his lawyer is Tom Hanks, so things are probably going to be okay. But in Tom Hanks' first meeting with him, he tells him, the Americans want you dead, the Russians want you dead, everyone would frankly be happy if you go to the electric chair. And Abel digests that information for a moment, and then he kind of shrugs, and he says, all right. And Tom Hanks says, you don't seem worried. And he says, would it help? So that also, I think, is a really powerful mantra. If you're tying yourself in knots, if you're going on long Facebook tirades, is that helpful? Is that productive? Is it making things better? Or are you just beating yourself up and maybe beating other people up? So what I really focus on in the book is meditative techniques and some are things that you do actually sitting with your eyes closed, the way most people think of meditation, and some are things that you actually do in the thick of activity or in the shower in the morning that can open us to contact with that silent place within us, which is inherently free of fear, anxiety, anger, addiction, and everything else. That space of just delicious silence, and we can get more anchored in that and then be functioning more and more from that space of freedom as we deal with these challenges.
You know, I'm thinking while you're talking, because a couple of things. Number one, you know, the practices in your book, and I'm just going to say this for the listening audience. You have such a wonderful way. It's an easy way of putting all kinds of really great practices in living level of life is what I'm going to say. Like to be able to take the idea of meditation, to be able to take these ideas that you've got of going in, going quiet, you know, getting into that space. But yeah, like you say, you can do it in the morning. You could do it in the shower. And I'm also thinking, because so many people are frightened right now and the children are frightened, are we safe to be able to do these with your children?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because you've got them simple enough in there.
Right. I've been very fortunate in my life as a meditator and as a meditation teacher. I started off trying to practice Zen, and it was very rigorous. You had to hold still and try to still your mind, and I flunked out after about 3 days. So that motivated me to find teachers that taught meditation in a natural way, where rather than pushing, rather than making an effort to quiet your mind, you know, like taking a big paddle and trying to wham, 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 flatten out all the waves on the surface of the ocean. Instead, just allow yourself to sink a foot or two below the surface. And there you discover, hey, down here the water is already always still. It's fine. The waves can do whatever they want. That's why I love the way you said that a moment ago. Finding that place of inner silence. It's not creating it. It's sinking down into it. It's always already there. Mm-hmm. So, and then I've been very fortunate as a teacher because I taught high school. I was a high school English teacher and also ran meditation programs at a fancy prep school in New Jersey for 33 years. And then I would go down the road to Northern State Prison in Newark, considered the roughest prison in New Jersey, and work with, you know, so I was going from kids who were on their way to the Ivy League colleges to a lot of guys who had never completed grade school. So I had to find what works for everyone, get it down to the lowest common denominator.
Wow. Yeah, so, because it just made 3 questions pop in my head, so let me sort through that. You went from high school down to a maximum security prison. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, I would. Well, I was teaching at the high school,
right.
So that was my day job. That's where I got paid, and then every Thursday night I would drive along Route 78 to Newark, where there's a group that I started there in 2005, and through rain or snow, no matter what was going on, every Thursday night I was there with my guys. And now I live in California, but the group still goes on without me. My old students teach my new students. And whenever I'm out in that part of the world, I always make sure I'm there on a Thursday so I can visit with them. And they're great. The prisoners are my favorite people to work with. You know, the Buddha said, whatever your practice is, your meditation or your whatever you do it like your hair is on fire. And that's one of the things I love about working with these guys. Their hair is on fire. They grasp, you know, for them, it's not just, some la-di-da, here we are in the comfortable suburbs. Shall I take this meditation workshop this weekend? I don't know. For them, they understand that they are not in control of their environment. Actually, neither are we, but we're able to delude ourselves into thinking that we're in control of our environment. Ultimately, we're not. In their case, it's obvious. You get up in the morning and pretty much you're not in control of what's going on the outside. So they're very good at sinking into what's going on in the inside. You know, sometimes I'll be leading a meditation workshop and people will say, I couldn't meditate because there was too much noise, traffic noise coming from the street. Well, my prison guys They meditate sitting, their cell is on a tier where there's radios playing 24 hours a day and arguments going on. It never gets quiet on the outside. And that's great for practice because it really leaves you no choice but to find the silence on the inside.
What inspired you to go into prisons, and when you got into them, were you well received? I'm curious about all that. Yeah.
Yeah. I was very well received by the guys. The authorities weren't sure. Mm-hmm. I actually, the way that I got it, well, first, one thing that motivated me was back in the 60s, back in my hippie days, I got thrown into clink a couple of times. And I was there for, never there for longer than 3 days, but it was long enough to realize that, after I was done with that part of my life and got a haircut and finished college and got a job and raised a family and got to meet wonderful teachers, and, go on retreats and pilgrimages in India and Tibet. And I realized that those guys, because I had the advantages of a middle-class upbringing and good education, most of those guys are still there, or their sons, or at this point, maybe their grandsons. And I always felt, no, I want to go back. I want to take some of these things that I've been so fortunate to learn and share some of that. So that motivated me. And then there was an opening at that prison at Northern State in Newark. There was actually a prisoner suing them for not providing a Buddhist chaplain. Oh. So some of my background, some of my training has been with Buddhist teachers. So I said, okay, I can do that. I can be the Buddhist chaplain. So I solved their problem.
I actually love what you're saying. I'm also relating to the fact that, like you say, the people that are in prison, it's obvious that they're in prison. But a lot of people that are out there are dealing with, violence and really very challenging things. And it's not as obvious that they're in prison, but they are. Right.
Yeah. No, there's a saying, we're all doing time.
Yeah.
And even if you're not dealing with violence, with physical violence, if you're looking for your ultimate satisfaction or your ultimate sense of okayness, of things being okay from the outside, you're not free. Because we can't control what goes on the outside. It's like we're moving the deck chairs around on the deck of the Titanic. Ultimately the body breaks down. Ultimately, everyone that you love is going to die. Ultimately, your favorite shirt is going to be a dust rag. You're having a good hair day today, you're bald tomorrow. So it's fine to enjoy those things while they're there, but if you're looking to them for your ultimate sense that, life is okay, that's a strategy that is for doomed to failure. But the good news is, as all the sages, whether it's the Buddha or Socrates or Jesus, Lao Tzu, they've all said in their different language, the kingdom of heaven is within you, or on the outside is samsara, confusion, on the inside is nirvana. And again, it is there. Jesus didn't say, if you're really good, you might get to the kingdom of heaven. And the Buddha didn't say, if you work really hard at your meditation, you can create nirvana. It's there. It's a matter of thinking into it, allowing it to just pull you in.
Yeah, I was thinking while you were talking, I don't remember who it was. Somebody said something about, don't put your all your investments in temporal things. I've probably modified that. I know in the Bible, Jesus says something about where your heart is, there will your treasure be also.
Yeah, and he said, don't build your house on the sand. Build it on solid rock.
Yeah, that's right. Well, this is Loretta Brown, and my guest today is Dean Sluyter, author of Fear Less. Living Beyond Fear, Anxiety, Anger, and Addiction. You can always look that right up on go get it on Amazon right now because you're going to want to get it. And we are going to open the lines up after the break. If you want to call in, it's 425-373-5527 or 1-888-298-5569. Don't be afraid to dial in. We're talking about meditation. We're talking about, well, like I said, how to fear less. We will be right back. Listen to what I say. Oh,
you know who that is, right?
Uh-huh. Me.
For those, right.
No.
Yeah. I had no idea you were part of the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
You know, there's a secret life to all of us.
I just learned something. That's a water cooler trivia.
Red Hot Chili Peppers. Never mind. Sorry about that. Just, we get to talking, and I just want to kind of spice it up, and I hope that we make you smile out there because that changes the whole day sometimes, I don't know. I think that's in, Dean, I actually think you talk about smiling in your book, don't you? I think you do.
I do. I have a whole chapter about smiling.
Yeah.
The great Vietnamese Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh said, sometimes your joy is the source of your smile, but sometimes your smile can be the source of your joy. There's something that's called the facial feedback hypothesis, which actually goes all the way back to Charles Darwin. And essentially what it says is that when you smile, or for that matter, when you frown, the facial expression feeds back to the brain and promotes the emotion that's connected with that facial expression.
Ah.
So actually the chapter is titled Resting Bliss Face. And I give some simple exercises for doing that, especially when you get up in the morning, and for some people that's the time of going, oh yeah, just falling right back into their old conditioning patterns of, oh, this is going to be another discouraging day, and I have to go to my stupid job, and I'm going to just interrupt that cycle. Start by just smile with your eyes. Because if you just paste an artificial smile across your mouth and it doesn't spread to your eyes, then that doesn't work as well. The eyes are the windows to the soul, as they say. And if you have to settle down for a moment, you can do this right now with people who are listening, and just settle into the way a smile feels, but that turning up at the corners, do that first with your eyes. And you can even kind of resist it with your mouth for a few moments until your mouth says, oh, no, I want to join the party. And then that way, it's really a feeling of a genuine smile. And you'll notice that really does. There was a study done, actually, I cite it in the book, where the researchers took 3 groups of people and they had them all watch the same cartoon. And one group held a pencil in their hand. The second group had to grip the pencil between their lips, and the third group gripped the pencil between their teeth while they were watching the cartoon. And of course, what that does is holding the pencil between your lips makes you frown, and holding it between your teeth makes you smile. And what they found was afterward, they asked each person to rate on a scale of 1 to 10 how funny was the cartoon. And the ones who were holding the pencil between their teeth all thought the cartoon was a lot funnier.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So the way that we experience our world is that, we largely create that world. For instance, mantra, we mentioned before, practice with mantra, which is very much associated with meditation. And my favorite mantra, which I write about in the book, is "wee." And as you can't see me here because we're on the radio, but as I say that, I'm throwing my hands up like a person saying "wee," and that is just, when you make that sound, you can't do that without smiling. And I dare you to go "wee" 3 times and then try to feel depressed.
Yeah, wee.
Right. That's a good mantra for marriage. Honey, the toilet's stuffed up again. Whee! And then you call the plumber.
I love that, actually. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I love that, actually. My guest today, by the way, is Dean Sluyter, and his book, Fear Less, Living Beyond Fear, Anxiety, Anger, and Addiction. And during the break, he and I were talking a little bit about how tumultuous the times have been, as particularly we've noticed an increase in that since the political elections last year, right? And so many of my clients come to me, and of course, they're angry, they're very anxious, they're very fearful. It's really hard not to get caught up in the news and get pulled down. So what are some of your suggestions or ideas of how we can fear less?
Well, there are more things we can do with the voice. For example, one thing that I talk about in the book, and I do a lot of this in my workshops. And by the way, I do workshops all over the country and beyond once in a while. One really effective thing that you can do with your voice is to sing what in music is called descending fifths. So the easiest way to get into this is think of the beginning of the national anthem. Oh, say, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then just do that on the syllable ah. And then we smooth it out. So we just go ah.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm a baritone, so I do it fairly low. But it's wherever you want to end on whatever is the lowest note that you can do comfortably, more or less. Now, what that does is the feeling. That's like the mantra of letting go, of resolution. It's found everywhere in music. Interestingly, it's at the beginning. It's the first 2 notes of the Star Spangled Banner, and it's the first 2 notes of Dixie. So both sides of the Civil War, they were killing each other, but they were saying, "I wish I wasn't," right?
Yeah.
Or if you want to go non-sectarian, Flintstones meet the Flintstones.
Yeah.
And have the feeling that you're starting in the high note and just settling into a pool of nice, warm, a big, warm bathtub of sound. Just letting go into that. You may have heard that in church every Sunday.
Yeah.
Right? And it's a feeling of question, answer, tension, release.
I find that fascinating. I do a lot of things with sound and healing, and the descending fifths. Yeah, because you're right. There is that sense of resolution, like you're going to get down there, and then do you just make that sound until you run out of air? What do you do?
Yeah, you hold it. I mean, it's good to take a deep breath first, and then just kind of sit in that. It's not a musical performance,
right?
And, we're
that's what I was trying to get to, by the way.
Right. And we're not trying to set Olympic records, so we're not there with our stopwatch. Oh, how long can I hold it? But what you want to do is, and this, by the way, in anything meditative, step 1 is throw away the clock. Like people say to me, "Okay, I've been meditating for 37 minutes a day, and I'm pushing for 40." And I go, "Oh my God, yeah, pushing is the key word here."
I am so. I'm going to interrupt. I'm so glad you brought that up, because I get asked that all the time. Like, Loretta, how often should I meditate and how long do I need to do it? And it's almost like people are like, well, I meditated for 2 hours today. You know, I meditated for, you know, and I think that's intimidating to people.
Yes. Yes, it is. I mean, meditation, when you really find out how natural meditation can be when you're, you know, my previous book, by the way, you mentioned Natural Meditation, a guide to effortless meditative practice. And I made the point of putting the word effortless there because that can sound very surprising to people because, you know, people say to me all the time, well, I tried to meditate, but, and you know, by the time they get to that but, I've stopped listening. Because they're going to say, I tried to meditate, but I couldn't clear my mind. I tried to meditate, but I kept getting thoughts. I tried to, right? Well, you know what? I can't clear my mind. I don't get rid of thoughts. Neither could the Buddha. As soon as you're trying, it's self-defeating. Because any effort to create a non-agitated state of mind is itself a form of agitation. Right there, it's you're like a dog chasing its tail.
Well,
so what I show people is how simple it is to just stop chasing your tail and rather than push, allow yourself to be pulled.
And I want to remind the listening audience, your books are very instructional, right? They're and they're an easy read. You know, they're some of the like the heaviness of your title, Living Beyond Fear, Anxiety, Anger, and Addiction, like those words are going to evoke things in us. But I'm letting people know that it's kind of a lighthearted read with very practical applications of things. And I'm also thinking about, you know, this idea of, oh my goodness, I want to, you know, I'm in the season of Lent, Loretta, and so for 40 days I'm going to meditate, right? You know, I'm going to do this thing, and how resistant that becomes just kind of by saying that. You said somewhere, and I might have heard it on someone interviewing you or read it in your book, but you talk about brushing your teeth and meditation being like brushing your teeth, like
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it really is good. You know, again, I say throughout the clock, don't worry about how long you're sitting for, because you know anything that you do that you enjoy, right? That you're doing it in joy, you tend to lose track of the time. And when people ask me how long should I meditate, I ask them, how long do you walk on the beach or walk in the park with the one you love? How long do you sit with your headphones on listening to your favorite tune or, you know, or dancing your butt off? The essence of those things is that you kind of pop out of time, or whatever you love doing. If you love running, if you love playing your guitar, time goes away when you do that. And it's the same thing with meditation. But having said that, it really is good to do it every day, just like brushing your teeth. To every day, even if it's for 1 minute, to get back in touch with that place, as we were saying earlier, that place of silence, that place of freedom that's already always there, that's beyond fear and anxiety and all these other challenging things. Because by dipping into that every day on a regular basis, setting up a time for it, just the way you brush your teeth, you don't think, well, am I going to get around to brushing my teeth today? By just doing that regularly, your contact with that gets stronger and stronger. Eventually, the need to sit down and close your eyes and meditate falls away. The whole point of meditation is that you should be completely 100% in touch with that inner place all the time. And you can't do that just by creating a sort of a mood or trying to, okay, now I'm not going to get angry. That's unnatural. That's suppression. That's different. But by being in the place that's beyond that, that's what works.
You know, that's
and then that way you can surf the waves of anger and the waves of fear, the waves of challenge are always going to be there. That's human life. but you can be dealing with them while anchored in the silent waters underneath.
That is a great point. I was actually talking to someone a couple of days ago who was asking me, and you just hit right on the issue, really. And their comment to me was something to the extent of, I meditate every day, and I'm doing this and that and the other thing, and then the minute something goes wrong, I blow. My anger is just all over the place.
Right. So that's a sign that the real integration is not there. And integration is what it's all about. In a way, we could say meditation is like throwing a dry sponge into the bucket of water. If you're doing that successfully, it should come out wet. After a while, it gets, wrung out, it gets dry again, we throw it in again. Eventually, you do that enough times, your sponge is wet all the time. And, then you're the Dalai Lama, and you're a lot of other people that I know, some of whom are, my guys in prison who are just, they're there, they're rooted in that, and it's beautiful to see.
What do you do to help people that are I'm going to say having a bad day? They're all riled up and they're like pacing around, and they want to get into that space, and then they're just like, rah,
Right. Right.
You know what I'm talking about.
Sure. And it can be I have a chapter on what I call on-ramps. And an on-ramp would be, any one thing that we do for a few moments or a few minutes to go from where we've been stuck and just from all our regular busyness of the day, and then kind of ramp down into the silence. So one on-ramp could be just following your breath. Okay, just sit down for a minute and, just maybe breathe a little slower, a little deeper than usual, follow the breath all the way in. And then maybe rest. Or I don't want to say hold the breath, because that sounds like strain, but just resting on that full breath, like resting on a nice fat cushion. And then all the way out. And then rest for a few moments on that exhaled state.
Yeah.
And, even one breath like that just can really kind of cool things out.
Yeah, the importance of the breath. Yeah, the
Right.
importance of the
So
breath.
but again, that's just one on-ramp. There's another beautiful thing that you've ever seen when Muslims pray. They have a thing where they hold the palms of their hands as if you're looking at a book, so that the pinkies are together and the palms are up, and they just rest their gaze in the palms of their hands. That's a lovely on-ramp. Or you can rest your gaze on a spot on the rug in front of you, the way the Zen people do. Or there's a Tibetan practice where you kind of lean back or sit back and rest your gaze. Just let your gaze sort of expand into the sky.
Yeah.
Everything is a door. Once you start realizing that this silence is not only inside you all the time, this place of silence and freedom, it's all around you, then you can use anything for a door into that.
Yeah, I remember as a girl, and I still do this, I used to just do sky gazing. I didn't know that was a specific practice, but I would just,
Yeah, the Tibetans call it Nam Kai Naljor. So you didn't know it. You were doing Nam Kai Naljor. Because, and again, a lot of these things we do in childhood. Often if they say that the Buddha, shortly before as he was sitting under the tree and shortly before his final full awakening, when it happened, he remembered. He said, "Oh, I've been here before. I had this glimpse of this sitting under this tree when I was a kid, watching my father supervise the plowing of the fields." So, and I think that's true. I know it's true in my case that years later, when I got into meditation, I realized, oh yeah, when this thing happened, that thing happened during childhood, I was there. It's so natural. But what's great is that there are these simple techniques so that instead of it just once in a while, arbitrarily, kind of by accident, we slip into that delicious, silent inner place, we can be systematically accessing it every day.
Yeah. And I think that's the key. Now, in your book, and reminding the audience again, my guest is Dean Sluyter. His book is Fear Less. You have chapters with wonderful titles, all kinds of lovely titles, which always raise my curiosity. But you have a chapter called 12 Steps and Two Thorns.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
yeah, can you comment on that chapter? Because we haven't really touched on addiction yet in our talk.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the 12 steps, of course, is a reference to the 12-step program.
Mm-hmm.
And I've dealt quite a bit with addicts and alcoholics. When I lived in New Jersey, I actually was doing workshops for a while at a couple of places that were dedicated to that. And here in Santa Monica, we host bi-weekly Tuesday night meditation sessions open to everyone. And quite a few addicts in recovery have discovered us and started coming and then bringing their sober buddies, their buddies in sobriety. And here's the thing. For people familiar with the 12 steps, in a way, the first 10 steps are all kind of clearing the decks for the 11th step. They're kind of cleaning up your mess, making the inventory, making amends, acknowledging your powerlessness, all of that, okay, this stuff I was doing before wasn't working. Mm-hmm. All of that, in a way, is just clearing the decks for the 11th step. The 11th step is through prayer and meditation, making conscious contact with the higher power. Now, Bill Wilson, who was the founder of the 12 steps, the founder of AA back in the 1930s, by the 1950s, AA became very popular, very successful, but Bill was a very honest person, very honest with himself, and he realized that the 11th step wasn't really working, that people didn't really know how to do prayer and meditation in a deep way so that they were really making true conscious contact with that inner place. They might have a nice feeling about it, a nice, pleasant idea about it, but they weren't really getting the juice. And he actually wound up in the 1950s experimenting with psychedelics, with LSD, with Aldous Huxley and some of the other early pioneers of LSD in the 50s. And Bill got very excited. He said, he ran back to the people at AA, hey, we're going to modify the 11th step. We're going to be dropping acid now. And that was too much. People at AA said, the old man's gone over the edge here. So that didn't happen. But then, and I tell this story in the book, and this is a story that almost no one knows. I think it was December of 1970, just a few weeks before Bill Wilson died. He died of emphysema from heavy smoking, which, by the way, sorry to say, cigarettes seem to be the drug of choice for a lot of people in recovery. Mm-hmm. They stop drinking, they stop taking heroin, but they smoke a couple of packs a day,
right.
Which is an indication that, the deep root of the thing has really not been addressed.
Right.
So Bill was dying of emphysema, and he was up in his house in New England. It was a cold day, and he had some friends and family, and they had invited someone over who happened to be an old friend of mine from my earliest meditation teaching days. And this friend of mine taught them all to meditate. And he taught them one at a time, and he taught Bill in the bedroom, then left him to meditate for 10 minutes, and then came back, and my friend opened the door, and Bill was gone. And my friend came downstairs, and he asked everyone in the living room, has anyone seen Bill? What's happened? All of a sudden, Bill burst through the front door. What had happened was he had opened his eyes, jumped out of the meditation, run down the back stairs, run out to breathe into the snow, to breathe the crisp air. This is a guy who's on death's door from emphysema. Runs through the front door, and he says, this stuff works.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's
so
great.
The 11th, so this is what people who've been coming to our meditation sessions find out.
Mm-hmm.
I had this girl, maybe about 20, and I tell the story in the book. she came a couple of times, didn't say anything. At the end of maybe her second or third time here, she was about to leave. She quietly pulled me aside. She said, I just have to tell you, I'm a heroin addict. I've been in recovery for 6 months. The meditation tonight, the deep, deep ease and relaxation was so delicious. It was so healing. I didn't think I could ever feel that way again in this lifetime without drugs.
Wow. So I have to interrupt just because we're down to like the last minute. This is the Loretta Brown Show. My guest today has been Dean Sluyter, author of Fear Less: Living Beyond Fear, Anxiety, Anger, and Addiction. And I highly recommend this book. And we were just making the connection between the 12-step program and step 11 with the meditation. You might really want to check this out. Also, come to check out Dean's workshops. And Dean, I think you're going to be in Portland March 30th. And we're going
March 30th, I'm going to be at New Renaissance Books, and we're working on getting something set up in Seattle. So my website is deanwords.com, deanwords.com. You can see my whole travel schedule there. I'm going to be all over the country. If I don't have something scheduled in your town, drop me an email. We'll set something up.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being on the show. And to my listeners, fear less and love more. Woohoo! All right, this is Loretta Brown. Talk to you next time.